I'm gonna do a little explanation before we just. If you just want to skip to the funny video, funny quotation mark, put the timestamp that is on screen. But however, an explanation. For new viewers of the channel, this is not the type of content I usually make. It's usually Minecraft, SMP, and Gorcon, with the occasional Hypixel or like other stuff. This is done because cough. I have finals and I like getting a good mark and I don't want to get an F minus. Okay. So posting this is our weekly video. And this is hello. Today we'll be discussing Racial Discrimination Act. First, let's start with what are both of them. Well, Racial Discrimination Act was enacted in 1944 that bans forms of racial discrimination be in public, be it words, signs, symbol, be it racist, it's ban. Well, the Dominion Election Act allowed women to vote and representation of power in Parliament. This also placed the Wartime Election Act. Now, this is important to note that at the time, it isn't as progressive as it is now. You have, you give people rights and freedoms and ability to say what they want. Back then, if you're a racial minority, you were designed to serve and have racial images with you because someone found it funny. And if you're a woman, don't. Well, to expand, women were seen as objects. So other than creating children, people didn't really view them as much, but you are allowed the same luxury quotation marks as us. Now, let's delve into the racial discrimination in Canada. A lot of the time, especially in the 1940s, there was a lot of conflict of discrimination because the Canadian government wanted a unified Eurocentric Canada. So if you were, say, Jewish or black, you weren't really treated as. This wasn't really helped by the fact that during World War II, wait a second, we're fighting people who are Japanese, and we have Japanese Canadians. The Canadian government began to target them. If you're a racial minority, or you had, you're visually looking different, you were kind of targeted. This didn't help with laws that allowed you to just outright deny black people or other minorities the right to do stuff. So in 1944, to address these concerns of the mistreatment of the minority, the Canadian government created the Racial Discrimination Act, which banned giving of publications, which means no studying, something means no making notes, books, etc., that are racist. This is mostly due to the amount of people fighting against this and wanting, hey, racism is bad. So, on the flip side, in the 1910s, after this guy named what if you allow people who fund the military to vote? And if he did that, even if you weren't Canadian, but you were served in the Canadian Armed Forces, you would vote. And then all of a sudden, it was they voted for me. Wait, what if I did that? But for people who related to them, and they were women, and women were allowed to vote, except if you're a minority. Okay, that worked pretty well. What if we gave women the right to vote, period, and run for parliament? And they did that, which is pretty good, which is, the Dominion Election Act. However, women can vote for other women, and if you're a minority, you couldn't really do all that, so it's not that well, but progress, quotation marks. Let's dive into this further. Around the time of the Canadian government, it really shows how much the Canadian government won't really actually benefit society. Okay, it makes us look good and will stop a revolution, which is pretty bad. So, they kind of allowed it, quotation marks, and helped, also in quotation marks. Which shows the Canadian government's inability to show effective change while dealing with true discrimination, while the impact of giving women rights is meaningful to really help other issues, like discrimination as women. Well, yeah, discrimination women face wasn't really, fought for as much. Now, we get into the concept. Discrimination Act. It opened up other minorities to fight for it. For example, Rosa Parks, well, during this period of giving minorities rights, they sadly denied black people business. Pretty messed up. However, this girl named Rosa Parks got denied her ability to sit one in a theater in the black balcony. However, she was like, you know what? No. She was thrown in prison, she was arrested, put in trial, she paid the fine, even though her previous complaints or other people who had to go through the kitchen thing. Hey, that's not fair. Why should we be denied service or forced to be in other places? Like, be there. In 2010, they did pardon her, which is pretty cool. But, not pretty nice. However, in 1961, they kind of abolished the loophole that allowed them to do that. As well as having in employment spaces, you can't really, treat, religious and racial minorities less than / not treat them / not pay them correctly. And in 1954, further accommodations were added. So basically, you can't really discriminate people in public. It's race, religion, or ethnic grounds, and so much more. For women, for first time ever, had rights. I know, unheard of. From that, they were able to, okay, well, 3, 2, 1, go. Women, for the first time ever, had rights. I know, unheard of. They were able not only to vote in 1920, but in 1925, women were allowed to divorce men. I know, well technically they kind of could divorce men, but you know, they had to have proof of abuse as well as something else. However, that could still be manipulated and used against the women. But now, women can leave their man, which is a good thing. Because, you know, a lot of abuse happened during these times, and that's not cool. And later, a group called the Famous Five, in 1929, one group fought in 1965, in LEM, fought for women's rights to be seen as people. Well, currently they're fighting at the time they're fighting for the right to be seen as people, which allowed, because Nellie M wanted to be a politician. And she wasn't allowed to, because to be a politician / judge, you need a person. And women weren't seen as people, they were objects. And then they won. And then women were seen as people, which is amazing! So in conclusion, the consequences of this would be giving women and other minorities rights. I know, horrible. Hope you enjoyed this video, have a good day, like, subscribe, and hit the bell.